Our next guest is a whistleblower who coordinated the largest unauthorized release of state secrets in U.S. history. She's here at South by Southwest with a memoir that tells her side of the story and to share her insights into the future of privacy on the internet. Chelsea, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
And here's the book. I'll just be very subtle about it. How's this?
Yeah.
Nice.
It works.
It works. You've gone through a lot. You've had an amazing journey. You've had an amazing story. Your story oftentimes has been told by others.
Sure.
And you have decided it's my turn to pick up the pen.
Yeah.
What is it that you really wanted to convey in this book, a part of the story that we don't know about?
Sure. I was asked to basically, I think that there's the assumption that this is supposed to be a memoir, right? And I feel a bit young for a memoir. I mean, I'm still doing a lot. Like,
but you've lived a lot of life.
Well, sure, but like I have hopefully 30, 40 more years to
Inshallah, as we say,
to do a lot of different things. But I wanted to tell a coming of age story. Okay. I wanted to tell a story from my perspective, and that's really what I focus on. I know that people are very interested in a kind of narrow snapshot of time, sometimes even just weeks of my life. And then, obviously the very, very like dark periods of time in my life. But I wanted to tell like a full story, a full and complete story about, just sort of like my childhood, my upbringing, my family, the experiences that I've had, my colleagues, my friends, my fellow inmates in prison. And I wanted to tell that story from sort of my perspective, because like those are the kinds of things that are going on in my brain and the experiences that I care about, and sort of the growth of me as a into the adult and the semi-functioning adult that I am now.
I think we're all semi-functioning.
I know.
That's a sign of adulthood. But, I love a good origin story.
Right.
And the book takes us on the origin story of Chelsea Manning. And what do you want people to really know about the beginnings, the family, the roots?
Sure. Obviously, as a trans person, people often ask me a lot of questions about sort of like, what's it like being trans? I just wanted to be able to tell a normal story of like some kid in Oklahoma, right? But I also play video games. I was on the internet a lot, and how these sort of experiences that seem innocuous in childhood, and end up sort of being gateways into access to things that, the sort of building blocks of later parts of my life, because it's like these kinds of events that happened in 2010 in particular, and the experiences that I had to allow me to survive through the ordeal of being in prison, really come from these like building blocks, these like earlier experiences that I had, growing up and being sort of a foreign person in a foreign country, because I went to school in the United Kingdom, sort of like how these formative years really shaped me into a person for that context, and to provide enormous amounts of context as to who I am.
And the context is important, right?
Right.
Why does she make the decisions she makes? Why?
It's not even why, because I feel like that's very self-explanatory. I don't think.
Is it though? Is it?
Well, for my own.
Or maybe the how. Maybe the how.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that I think that that's sort of like what happened in that narrow snapshot of time is very independent, from my story, and that's why I focus the book on my own experiences, and I kind of separate the individual from the act a little bit, in sort of like how I bring this up, because I think it one of the things that I find troublesome or that I find frustrating sometimes is that people, whenever somebody does a controversial action, they usually look at the person, and they look at the person's history. Whenever it's like you would do that no matter who it was, right? So I just try to separate that just a little bit.
But I think it's important, because what people fail to realize is you're a person who has experiences.
Right.
You have years. You're more than just that story.
Yeah.
And I think when you become
it was a complete left turn from from the direction of where my life was going up to that point.
And I think what happens is in the public consciousness,
yeah,
You are forever in this ember, frozen in time.
Exactly.
That's all you are.
And now I'm a security consultant, you know, and I work on, you know, different projects, and I'm an activist, and I work in entirely different spaces than I did previously in my sort of post-prison civilian life.
But I do think, I mean, for this younger generation, I'm talking about Gen Z, right? I do think they see you in a different light, right?
It's also Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha, okay.
Can't forget the kids.
Okay, yeah, but like, you know, I feel like there's one generation that says, oh, Chelsea Manning, oh yeah, the whistleblower. But there's a new generation that says, whistleblower? No, the trans rights activist. And other people are saying, the gamer.
Yeah, the Twitch streamer.
Yeah, the Twitch streamer.
The number of people who come up to me and they're like, hey, I saw you play video games.
It was like a tear of pride. But, you know, speaking of video games.
I'm good at games, too.
Yeah, look, video games.
I just want to be clear on that.
Hey, respect. All right, I didn't
sign me up, esports.
I did not at all question your gaming ability. But there's something here in the book and in what you've talked about, video games, right?
Yeah.
Like you, I'm not in Oklahoma, I'm not in the UK. I'm a brown kid, son of immigrants growing up in the Bay Area, feeling like an outsider, growing up in the 80s and 90s. Video games were a lifeline for us.
Absolutely.
Right? A community. It's what kids who didn't get invited to the parties, that's what we did.
Yeah.
We flexed our muscles with our friends, right? You got experience points. How important is gaming to Chelsea, and specifically what it gave you a sense of purpose and identity and belonging?
Sure. There are two things. There are two things that I hold very dear in my personal life. You know, and it's not just video gaming, because it is very important, but music is also very important. You know, I was for a brief period of time I was a semi-pro DJ in the DC scene, and now I'm back to DJing. Like, that's another sort of progression of, you know, Chelsea's experience, and second, you know, sort of I guess second or third act or whatever is now that, you know, I'm able to play video games in front of an audience. I'm able to do DJ sets in front of people, and these are passions of mine that have pre-existed. You know, these have gone back as far back as I can remember. I mean, I was downloading electronic music for the first time and being exposed to electronic music for the first time. You know, back in the Napster days, like 1999.
I remember, that's a deep cut. But
yeah.
All this, it's fascinating in your life and just even in contemporary American culture, how all this intersects. Gaming, Hogwarts Legacy, bullies, trans rights activism, right? So when you're seeing this, and for those who don't know, Hogwarts Legacy is now a best-selling game that came out.
Sure.
And for those who are playing the game, there's trans rights activists who are saying, please don't play this game because you're supporting J.K. Rowling and her hurtful comments. Mm-hmm. And other gamers are saying...
Yeah, I saw this controversy.
Yeah. Other gamers are saying, for those who don't know, other gamers are saying, who cares, it's just a game. And I think it's just really interesting.
Yeah, it's a very important cultural...
Here it is. It's all coming together.
It's a very important cultural moment for, you know, certain groups of people, for sure.
And for you, because now you have become, whether you like to embrace it or not, for many trans kids, they're like, oh, Chelsea Manning. This controversy with Hogwarts Legacy, right, where you see gaming and transphobia come to a head. How do you feel you can use your voice to push this conversation forward in a healthy way?
Sure. I just keep doing it. You know, I keep striving. I keep moving forward, and I keep doing my own thing. Like, I believe very strongly that you know, because I didn't sign up to be like a role model.
No one does.
And I'm certainly flawed. You know, I certainly have my own you know, sort of issues. You know, and sort of like, you know, how and the things that I do, and I'm always trying to learn and figure out different things about myself that I didn't know previously. And that, you know, I'm just trying to be myself and just try to do the best that I can with the knowledge that, you know, I have a very simple goal, and that is to try to be the person that I needed to see when I was a teenager. I mean, at the beginning of this book, I dedicate the book to the kids that are essentially me 20 years ago.
And oftentimes those trans kids and people who don't know, you know, there is a movement right now. They're using anti-trans hate to Trojan horse everything else, right?
Sure.
Be afraid of them. Be afraid of these kids, these trans kids. And the data, you know the data. For those who don't know, when you look at the data about trans people, it's suicide, abuse, depression. I mean, it is. And you live through it. And so the model that you're trying to create now, What did young Chelsea not have?
What didn't I have? I didn't have the community that exists that a lot of these kids have access to today. I didn't have knowledge. There's like, with the internet, now you even know, because like as I talk about in my book, I didn't really know that trans people existed apart from being like this stereotypical character on Law and Order, right?
And
Who
what
dies
was
at the
the
beginning
character?
of the episode.
Dies.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So, like that was, that was my only exposure to being a trans person. So, I'm very thankful that kids have a lot more access to things. I mean, obviously they're trying to restrict these things, but these reactionary waves that have happened before in the past, and I've lived through sort of, in the late 90s, like during the Matthew Shepard era, after the
hate crime.
Yeah, exactly. After his murder, and sort of, we've been through these things before. And yet, even with the HIV crisis and with reactionary waves and pushes against for bills against marriage equality, I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to get through to the other side of this and survive.
Well, I appreciate your optimism, right? Because right now, as we're speaking, now they're banning drag queens. I mean, who drag queens have been a threat to, but they're banning drag queens.
Yeah, but they were banned in the 1960s. It was prior to this the Stonewall uprising. Like this has been an ongoing thing for 60, 70 years. And if you talk to people in the community who are older, the elders, they have this wealth of knowledge, but also this wealth of strength that I find so passionate and so powerful. Ballroom, the people who were in the ballrooms in the 1980s, whenever there was such devastation in the queer and trans community, it's like, it's really inspiring to see and to learn from and to absorb. And I find that, it's a reminder that we're not in an isolated moment. We're in a constant, multi-generational sort of struggle, but also there's art and there's fun and and just like with the ballroom culture, I'm starting to see that again. And one of the reasons why I become so passionate about getting back into DJing is I want to have fun again, because it's just so because like it has become so overwhelming, and I want to bring back that ember of optimism that got the community through some of the other tough times that we've gone through.
We're in Texas right now, and as you know, it's tough for many trans kids to have joy because the Republican lawmakers here have really zeroed in on this community. Like you said, they always have.
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, so it's an experience that I'm familiar with.
What is your message to those activists right now, especially those young kids who are desperately trying to find joy, but they're living in a situation, an environment where the target is on them, and their lawmakers are attacking them to pass other hateful agenda?
Sure. You are loved. Somebody out there is there to love you, and somebody's gonna, like you may feel overwhelmed. You may feel this overwhelming sort of like, why are people talking about me? Why do I feel this way? And I've been there, and I've gone through that, and I didn't have the community and the infrastructure that existed today. And and I'm pretty confident that we will figure it out, and that I just don't you can't give up hope. I mean, like it's not that it's going to get better. I'm not saying that like it gets better. Like I was kind of like that, if you recall, like the 10 years ago, there's sort of the it gets better campaign. Yes, but sometimes it's hard. Life is hard, and there's tough times, and and I've gone through my fair share of that. But there's been moments, and and I talk about it in my book. There's been moments of joy, and that's what gets me through life. And I think that yes, there are hard things, but we'll figure it out. And there's a beauty in figuring out, and in knowing that you are alive, and that you are loved by someone out there. And the internet, thankfully, gives more people the ability to recognize that fact.
It's really admirable that you have so much optimism, because I think people also forget, the young generation forgets that.
It got me through prison. Yeah. So.
Well, that's exactly it. That you were incarcerated for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, and I had a 35-year sentence at that.
And so when you were in prison as an incarcerated person for 7 years, looking at that time, a 35-year sentence.
Yeah, I didn't think I was ever getting out.
Ever.
Yeah. Well, you know, I figured by the time I'm 50, who knows where my health is going to be, and you know, after 30 years in prison. So.
And so, like,
I viewed it as you know, at 20 in your early 20s, it's sort of a life sentence.
it's a life sentence. And so this optimism, when you were there in prison, and again before you were pardoned, and you're like, my whole life I'm going to be in prison. What gave you hope to keep going, to keep dreaming?
I just tried to focus on what was in front of me right then and there, the people around me, the things that you know, the hobbies that I wanted to do, the books that I wanted to read. I never stopped trying to better myself. I never stopped learning. I never stopped writing. I never stopped trying to be the best person that I could be in the circumstances that I had. Because, you know, even and you know, that we don't have control over everything, you know, and I learned to let go of that. I don't have control over how people see me or how people talk about me, but I have control over how I respond to it. I have control over the things over how I get through my day, and I have control over how I take the things, the experiences that I have, and build upon them and learn and grow. And so, you know, I just tried to focus on what I had some amount of control over, and try to do the best that I could with what I had.
I've talked to formerly incarcerated people. My parents were formerly incarcerated people, and they said they just find something that gives you control and joy, hold on to it, and that gets you through to the other side. And
you know, one of the things that I've found is that it's actually more overwhelming in this world now. Like I do consider myself to be an institutionalized person, you know, because the struggle that I had, you know, especially as a public figure, and being somebody who, you know, has been in an environment, a very controlled and regimented environment, like the military and then prison. You know, it's been a struggle to like learn how to function, to know to learn boundaries that I didn't know existed before, and to trust people and to build friendships, you know, that aren't necessarily based off of circumstance.
My final question, I could talk to you for another 30, but I've got only 2, but I have to ask you this. You went to prison for making a decision to whistleblow, right?
Sure.
And we're in a place right now where people want more transparency. But the government,
I think we have a lot of transparency now. We're
No, but the question I have is, in hindsight, the balance between transparency and national security.
Right. I think that it's more complicated than that now. I think that what we have now is we live in a world where we're so overwhelmed with information that actually what's happening is that bad actors are, you know, they have an incentive to just muddy the water and spread different, like, because every time that there's a big controversial thing, bad actors aren't trying to hide anything anymore. What they do is they have like 5 or 6 different versions of that spread all over the internet, where nobody can agree on what happened.
Confusion.
Right?
Disinformation.
Yeah, so misinformation and disinformation, and being able to verify that kind of information is something I'm very focused on, and I think that's going to be the bigger struggle that we have, because it's not, you know, very little information is actually a secret anymore. Now it's buried by the deluge of information that we're overwhelmed with.
In my final question, in hindsight, because sometimes life gives us mileage in hindsight, any regrets for the decision that you made that took 7 years?
Yeah, I don't really think of it like that way. You know, the road that I went down and the path that I had, you know, any variation or change at any particular moment, it could have ended very differently. You know, there's a poignant point in this story where, you know, it was how long before Barnes and Noble was closed, you know, determined whether or not this ever happened, and whether I just moved on. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle for me to like try to go through every single, you know, thing that happened, because if anything had been different, I would have been a different person.
But you know what? You're right about it. You came out through the other side. The book is promoted.
ReadMe.txt.
ReadMe.txt. It's available now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That again is Chelsea's memoir-ish ReadMe.txt. It's available at the South by Southwest bookstore and wherever books are sold. And you can learn more about her work at her website, xychelsea.tv. Stay tuned. We'll be back live at 1:30 this afternoon with the hosts of the Scandal Rewatch podcast. Stars Katie Lowe's and Guillermo Diaz. These interviews are also streaming live during the event on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SXSW. I'm Wajad Ali, and thanks for watching.